It's one big party. Everyone can participate, including wheelchairs, and the community makes it even better. That's Chris Dolce, Race Raves reviewer. And with that, welcome to the House Einstein podcast.
This is House Einstein podcast 79, and we are recording it on the eve, well, not quite the eve. We are recording it about a week before the kickoff of the summer season here in Boulder with an event known as the Bolder Boulder. And we decided that given the impact and community involvement, the economic as well as social impact and obvious community involvement for the whole city for this event, it would be worth devoting our closing table topic, dedicating our closing table topic to the Bolder Boulder, because it's huge in how it affects our community. And we thought you might want to get a little look behind the scenes of what it's really like here in our lovely community.
And so it should be, I think, a pretty fun podcast. We tried to keep the news events light amongst some of the darker ones. But overall, I think we'll have a lot of fun with this one.
There is one dark one that we're going to talk about, but mostly this is a very upbeat, positive podcast. We will spin it a little bit towards real estate, as we always do, because our mission at the brokerage, the House Einstein brokerage that sponsors this podcast, is to help you make a smarter real estate decision. But our mission here in the podcast itself is to entertain. And please don't make any major financial decisions or other decisions that affect your life based on what you hear in this podcast. Our attorneys make us say that to keep us from getting sued, or at least to keep us from losing those lawsuits. So remember, entertainment. I am the founder of the House Einstein brokerage, and Hamish is the right-hand person, jack of all trades at the brokerage, and vital to everything we do here. And if you'd like to learn more about what we do, visit us at houseeinstein.com.
There's a podcast that I listen to, and there's three people. And they introduce the first two themselves, the founder of this, whatever. And then the third guy goes, well, I'm also here. And they go, that's right, Jonathan's also here. And that's it. That's his intro. If we run out of ideas, Hamish is also here.
Well, so let me walk you through the topics that we'll be discussing today. We're going to touch base briefly about market conditions last month. It's currently, toward the end of May, so the data from April is now fully baked, and you could trust it to be reasonably reliable. And then we'll talk about our closing table topic, the Bolder Boulder, and all of its impact to our local community, what it's all about, how Hamish and I approach it perhaps differently, as well as some of the other stuff happening at the same time as the Bolder Boulder, like the Boulder Creek Festival.
Oh, this is the same time?
Yeah.
I imagine that eclipses. Anyway.
And you know what else is happening
Monday.
At the same time? Do you want to know what else is happening at the same time?
Memory Square Pool in Louisville opens?
No. Somebody decided this would be the perfect time to start some major construction projects on Canyon and Broadway. So there's all this construction going on all over Boulder that just broke ground. On Arapahoe, right around Foothills Parkway, there's construction. It's just going to be one tangled knot of humans this coming Memorial Day weekend.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing most of the people there will be runners this weekend. It is this weekend, right?
It's Monday.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Monday.
Yeah. Which is it's Memorial Day weekend is how it's generally perceived, Hamish.
Yeah. Memorial Day weekend. Okay. Yeah. Proper.
Yeah.
So I'm ready to jump into the closing table, but we've got market conditions first.
We do have other stuff to talk about too in the table of contents. So we also have a little bit of shameless self-promotion. We're going to talk about sales of the week. And then we're going to talk a little bit about some local news that impacts the local real estate market. So news that impacts our local real estate market. And then we've got our usual carve-outs to wrap it up.
Yeah. Market conditions.
Yeah, you want to get started?
I'm ready to jump into the Bolder Boulder, and only things I can think about are Bolder Boulder things. So.
Yeah, well, me too. And I'm gonna have to do the market conditions stuff live because I wasn't, as we prepped this yesterday and today, I wasn't really thinking about the data. I mean, there was a very significant thing to talk about. So This podcast is sponsored by House Einstein. We serve buyers and sellers in Colorado, focusing on Boulder, Denver, and several mountain resort towns, including Breckenridge and Winter Park. Our mission is simple: help you make a smarter real estate decision. You can learn more at houseeinstein.com or our YouTube channel, where you'll find videos on neighborhoods, specific listings, and much, much more. Let's jump in. I'm now going to do this live. If you were with me as a client, this is where we probably would start on a video call, is with a chart and talking about overall market conditions relative to what your price range and location dictates, also property type, number of beds and baths. But overall in Boulder County, so this is the entire county, inclusive of the L's and the city of Boulder, the number of houses for sale, that's detached single-family houses, rose to 880, and that is a 41.7% increase year over year. The number of homes under contract also rose to 323. Again, single-family houses. I did say the word homes, but I meant single-family houses. 323 were under contract last month, up 9.5%. And closings, a slight tick upward, 1% more closings than a year ago. 308 deals closed last month. And days on market, we don't usually talk about days on market because in the peak of things, the number is basically zeroed out. But days on market now is a little more reliable, and the median for single-family detached houses that closed last month was 37, and the median sale price $885,469, so up 1.2% year over year. And
median single family.
Median single family.
Oh wow!
But,
okay,
but that's not on a dollar per square foot basis.
And it's county, not city.
And it's county, but city is in the county. It just blurs it out with that much data. 348 was the median dollar per square for single-family houses, down 5.9%. Now let me jump into the city of Boulder, our bread and butter, where we focus most of our real estate attention. The brokerage also serves Denver, and I personally also serve the foothills and, of course, all of Boulder County, including all of the L's. But we really, really love the city of Boulder, where I tend to focus most of my activity. So let's start with new listings. 230 new houses hit the market last month, an increase of 31% year over year, 30.7, I should say precisely. And total inventory, 368 houses are now on the market, up 30.5% from a year ago. And the property under contract actually had a bit of a surprise. And this is an interesting data point, but there were 104 houses on the market last month. That's up 31.6%. Closings increased to 104. So that's 25.3% up year over year, up 25.3% year over year. I'm going to skip it. Well, all right, let me look at days on market. I really don't like days on market as a stat because it's just so erratic, and I don't put a lot of faith in it on a 1 month basis. But the median was 44 days on market. That's an increase of 15.8% from a year ago. And the sale price, the median sale price, now this may surprise people, but it fell pretty hard last month to $1,253,500. That's a decrease of 20.2% from a year ago. But with the city, the data set, the sample size is very small. So it's not uncommon to see substantial swings in the median sale price. The median sale price from, March was 1.4. Like you're looking at, more than $200,000 swing on a monthly basis. So don't put a lot of faith in anybody that quotes you median sale prices for the city. You really need to look at it over a much longer period of time, at least a quarter, and even then a little suspect. But the median dollar per square fell to 456, and that's a decrease of 15.1%. And all of that was detached single family houses. If you're looking at attached townhomes and condos, completely different analysis. And as I always tell our clients and listeners and people that read our newsletter, which, by the way, you can find at houseeinstein.com if you'd like to subscribe, you really need to do this analysis down to the street level for your particular type of real estate. The number of bedrooms, the baths, the age of the home, the orientation of the home on the lot can even have an impact. If it's a condo, it's a little bit more apples to apples if you're looking at other condo units that are exactly the same in the building. But even then, where it is in the building could have an impact. The upper level floors, for example, typically trade at higher values, particularly the top floor, than the garden level units. And of course, the subgrade units, if you are unlucky enough to have one of those or buying one of those, they are a very different price point. And if you could afford it, I would not recommend it. Okay, so that's it in a nutshell. But big picture, it's interesting because it is showing some signs of the market awakening, but also showing some signs of a market that's softening. And so you really, really need to know the comps. You really need to look at the competitors. We are getting ready to list a condo, and in those conversations with the seller, we've agreed that it's far better to be aggressive on the downside. So the theory here is that you lead the market. And if the market's on the upswing, like it was from 2020 to 2022, you can price high and the market's going to catch up to you. And you may even get that high price. But if the market is falling, it's a good idea to price it below the most recent sales to try to get it sold quickly versus price it above the most recent sales and fight the momentum of the market. So rule of thumb, not applicable in every situation. It's a good idea to lead the market when it comes to pricing. And the last thing I want to say before we get off this topic of the market conditions, pricing is not the most important criteria in a real estate transaction in marketing it. Yes, it is important. You can't ignore it, but it's sort of like, I remember in my MBA program, one of my MBA professors saying total quality management, TQM, which was kind of the rage back then, is a given. It is not something that you should be using to describe a competitive advantage. Pricing it right is the same way in my mind. You should always price it right and with an intelligent strategy. And any agent that's not pricing it right is really screwing it up. But how they price it should never be what you're choosing an agent on. You should really assume you're going to price it right and have really intelligent conversations with the agent that's representing you to make sure you're pricing it right and you agree on that strategy. But then beyond that, pricing it right, there's marketing it right. It's prepping it. It's photography, it's videography, and it's marketing beyond the MLS. And boy, there is so much that you could do beyond the MLS. We just signed a contract for a lot of marketing that goes beyond the MLS that I'm not even allowed to talk about the terms of the contract per their confidentiality agreement. But yeah, that's all beyond what just stick it on the MLS and what more is a realtor doing. So be sure if you're choosing an agent, ask them what they do for you, buy side or sell side.
Yeah. And you glossed over it quickly. I think we've talked about it in a lot of other pods, but that prep is something that we've heard kind of feedback for is to find us. We've had a few listings that we've won over other agents where these clients were told that their house didn't need any work and they were just ready to slap it on the market. And we come in and we're like, oh no, we have a slideshow for you.
Yeah, here's our 50 slide deck PowerPoint that tears your house apart with recommendations for how to make it more marketable. Yeah, no, you don't need to do anything. Fun. It looks great. Yeah. Maybe 3 years ago, that might have been true, but today, if you actually want your house to sell and sell at a reasonable price, you have to do a lot of prep. Or you're leaving a lot of money on the table and time on the table because it may not sell, depending on, of course, price range, location, all of those good things.
Yeah. What was it? The price is a given. It's a TQR?
TQM, total quality management. I'm dating myself because people don't use that term anymore, but the point of it was that it isn't, at the time, it should never have been described as a competitive advantage for a company. Every company should have total quality management. And today, every realtor should be pricing the home correctly. That should be a given, but we know it's not. It really should be, though. The competent agents, like the top 10% of agents in this town, of which I am one of those agents, price correctly most of the time. Sometimes they have a seller that pushes them to go too high. And sometimes even, frankly, they go too low. But it wasn't an accident. It's intentional if they're doing that.
Part of a strategy or broader strategy. So I wrote down we should take a look at attached data maybe in the next pod or two, just because inventory is pretty high there, isn't it?
It is, and in general, it's weaker than the detached single-family house market. It may also have some opportunities hidden in the mess, including one of our listings, I think, is a fantastic property that you wouldn't normally look at because it's an attached dwelling.
I've got the script ingrained in my head. Osman and I just went and filmed a little video on it. So
yeah,
I'm just thinking
we're creating all sorts of content to help encourage people to come look at it, because sometimes we have to drag a buyer to see a property, and they've ruled it out because of location or property type or whatever, and they're missing an opportunity. And I feel like there's a buyer that's going to come look at this and realize they're missing an opportunity. Like, it's an opportunity, especially when it dawns on you that this is a very large property and functions like a single family house in all ways, other than that one thing called a shared wall. Yeah. Okay.
I want to say like it's a functional deal, but this isn't shameless self-promotion. And that address is 700 Poplar if you're listening and curious.
Check it out. We'll have some great new content probably within the next week that we've been working on. And it is a lovely, lovely property. And buyers that are looking at single-family houses west of Broadway in North Boulder, frankly, if you're an agent listening to this, you're doing your client a disservice by not at least looking at it, because it's so much better than the vast majority of houses that are even close to this price range. Like, add 300,000 or 400,000 minimum to get the same equivalence in a single family detached house, and consider some of the benefits, including economic benefits, the shared roof, the energy efficiency of a triplex. Really, it's got three shared units. Yeah,
wicked cool. So the Bolder Boulder. I'm thinking from like somebody listening, they're not even in the country and they're hearing about this. What is a Boulder? Is it the city?
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Hamish. And let's get to this topic. So what is it? It is a 10K road race, and it is held on city streets. It has been going on for, I would say, 50 years. You want to ask AI when the first Bolder Boulder was?
Maybe like 76.
I first attended in 2005, and I have attended pretty much every year since. I may have missed a couple for various reasons, but I have a shirt drawer full of Bolder Boulder shirts, and I suspect at some point the only shirts I'll have are Bolder Boulder shirts, because I pretty much do it every year. So it's a cool. It's a 10K road race. It begins in the city and it ends at Folsom Field at CU. And as it zigzags around the city, there are bands, there are parties that are happening, there are all sorts of craziness. People are in costumes, and there's at least one slip and slide. In the past, you've seen people with keggers. And between all of that happening, the beer, the slip and slides, people handing out bacon and marshmallows on the street, and just soaking you with super soaker, water guns. It's just a big party, and it's super inclusive. There's walking waves, there's running waves, there are professional waves, including which have a very high purse. The win for the professionals is super generous for what it is, right?
Oh, really?
For run, oh yeah, it's thousands of dollars that the winners get for winning. I don't. What do you want to look up the actual amount when we're going into this?
I'm curious. It has been going on for 46 years. I think I personally have attended 5 years. I volunteered one of them, and I think I ran the other 5. I want to see your shirt collection. I'm kind of jealous of that. That's pretty sweet. But
it is pretty fun to have, except what's not sweet is that they fit tighter sometimes because I'm getting bigger. But in the last 6 months, I've gotten smaller, so it's nice to have them fit looser.
I'd blame the blame the dryer, but it'd be cool to you show up in a 2010 shirt or something. That's kind of a bit of a flex at that point. Yeah, we're talking about like this event. So there's like the first thing you're listening to, and Osman mentioned there's walking waves, but you go for the environment. You don't go for it's a 10K or, I mean, you can be competitive, but if you're not a competitive person or not even an athletic person, you can still go and have a fantastic time. Like it's through the streets and kind of through the city of Boulder, but you'll pass through neighborhoods. And I think we're going to talk about like listing exposure and stuff there too. But anybody whose house fronts to the event is free to kind of put on whatever they want to put on. I think there were llamas that people were able to pet and just like interact with in somebody's front lawn. Some people will put on slip and slides, many tables serving alcohol. It's a huge party. Yeah.
Yep. Well, last year, so let's keep talking about the numbers. Last year, there were supposedly 48,318 registrants. And, my brain always goes to what is the kind of, like, how does this work? Especially once I realized that it was not put on by the city. This is one of the open secrets about the Bolder Boulder. It is actually a private organization that created and manages the Bolder Boulder in partnership with the city and CU. And of course they make money on t-shirts and sponsorships as well, and because there's a lot of sponsorship dollars. But just on registrations, if you assume, of that 48,000 registrants last year, that they get maybe $40 of the total fee, it just goes to the Bolder Boulder. That alone is $1.9 million in fees just for the registrations. I'm coughing over that. For an event that happens for one day, which is just sort of kind of mind-blowing. And then I'm not sure what the sponsorship dollars are like, but I imagine they're at least that as well. And in the city, the impact, forget about the private organization thing, like it's sort of a dream, right? I wish I had a business that people would tattoo the House Einstein logo on their bodies. Yeah. They love it so much. They would put the tattoo on their body like Harley Davidson. I feel like the Bolder Boulder also falls into this special category because it's so beloved, but yet it's a private for-profit event and it has thousands of volunteers. People that would gladly devote their time to this big party in the city. And the total number of spectators, supposedly, according to the website, 100,000 plus people are just lining the course. So, and this is AI generated. I'm not checking every one of these links, but according to AI, there is 23 million in direct and indirect impact for Boulder from this event. And in 23, there was an 18.8 million. So it went up almost, 10%? No, 19 to 23. So you're looking at more than 10% increase year over year in economic impact. And how does that economic impact break down? 6 million went into overnight accommodation. That's over 24,000 overnight stays in the Boulder area. Restaurants raked in 2.6 million. Retail spending 2.9 million, and that the event supports 9,500 jobs with, of course, the strongest impacts in lodging, food and beverage, and retail. So all of this is happening Memorial Day weekend, along with something else. Yeah, what's that? Monday. Well, I think
one day.
One day. Oh, yeah, one day.
Yeah.
They're counting it as one day. Absolutely. And if you're here for it, there's also Boulder Creek Festival, which has tons of vendors selling their wares, local arts and crafts types of things. And of course, Boulder Creek Festival also has an amazing music scene. Most people don't know about that. And here we are, Hamish, volunteering to plug it like this for-profit event. But at the same time, it's worth it because it is so much fun. And at the same time, there's a little bit of a sad note, a poignant note, because it is occurring on Memorial Day, and the organizers and the CU and the city do, and the military does a great job of reminding us what Memorial Day is all about at the actual in the actual stadium, along with the ability to write a fallen service member's name that you're running in honor of on your race bib. Cool. But the actual ceremonies in the stadium are very much worth going to. They're very moving. And usually you hang out there in the sun having one of your free beers that you get if you're a participant, and having the snacks in the snack bag, and watching the events in the ceremony. And then it ends with sort of a flyover over by the F-16s from, I think, the Air National Guard flyover. That's
so. All the times that I've participated, I've just gone at home immediately to lick my wounds and like sleep off the day. Osman is leagues more athletic than I am. Like, this guy, he doesn't really advertise it, but if you follow him on Instagram and stuff, he's like running and cycling, always outdoors, very fit. Apparently, if you stick around at the end, there's a jet flyover, and it's a lot more kind of Memorial Day focused.
Well, I mean, thank you for the compliments, Hamish. I think that I just love this event. I don't think of myself as super athletic, but I definitely love running and feel very grateful that my body is held up and I'm able at my age to keep running. And this year we trained a little more than usual, so Leah and I are pretty excited. And when we're in better shape, like I think we are this year, we do something called a victory lap. So we do one lap of running it for time. Although we're not in a qualified wave, so my time's going to be more dependent on passing people. Like Leah asked me last night, she's like, what sort of time do you think we're going to get? Like, are you aiming for a time? And I said, no, because we're running with a whole bunch of unqualified wave people that there's going to be tons of walkers we're going to be dodging. Mm-hmm. For the first 2 miles, we're going to be dodging, which is really adds a lot of steps.
It does.
So, but that's totally fine. It's for fun. And so the first lap is for time officially, but it's really for fun. And the second lap is really for fun. So we'll run through and then we'll grab bags and walk out of the stadium, stick the bags in the bikes, and then start walking to the start and jog to the start again, and then do a second lap. And in the second lap, we will take the time to eat the marshmallows, slide on the slip and slide, check out the bands. We will be quite happy with an hour time, or even an hour 10 time for the first lap. But the second lap could take like 2 hours. We're going to be walking a bunch. We're going to be checking out the bands. We're going to be chatting with neighbors. Oh yeah. It's just the goal of the second lap is pure fun. The goal of the first lap is really the run. And spectator watching, Hamish, we have not mentioned, is in the stadium is so much fun. The costumes that people wear, it is just amazing.
Yeah, I haven't been able to go kind of to the nines as far as costumes go, but I'll always make sure to wear just something a little bit more out there, or just weird. It's kind of like go for it. I'll say like the route changes every year. So if you're lucky enough to have a listing, it does, doesn't it?
I don't think so. The route's been
I'm pretty sure.
I don't think so. The route has stayed pretty stable for at least the last 7 or 8 years. I mean, it may change. It may have changed slightly, but I don't think it changed. Like, I don't think it changes.
Yeah, I mean, all these pictures look like they're the same.
Yeah, no, I think you're wrong about that, buddy. I think it is the same route. I'm
fabricating lies.
It has changed over time, but it's pretty steady. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you.
Well, I was thinking, like, as far as like if you have a listing on this route, like the exposure that you're going to be getting would be insane. There was a tiny little like runners club or marathon that ran by, I don't remember, one of Ian's listings, and he actually moved all the listing signs to where the route would be. And who's to say, but that home went under contract pretty quick.
Yeah. I mean, I had a listing a few years ago right on the route, and it was great knowing 40,000 plus people were going to run right by my sign. I was very happy to see it. I also feel like it's worth just staying on Memorial Day as a topic a little bit, because the Memorial Day aspects of the event are the part that makes it poignant. And being there to see like senior service members talk about their time in the military, also seeing the memorials for soldiers that have passed, it is in honor of those. It is not Veterans Day. I want to be clear about that because people often get confused. Memorial Day is built on a long history of the end of wars and memorial of those who are no longer with us and gave the ultimate sacrifice. And I feel kind of strange about saying that because I know in some generations, and I'm going to look to you to talk about this maybe, like I grew up with both patriotism and a clear message that the Republic is far from perfected. We always have room for improvement and need to improve as a society, as a country. That it's not the love it or leave it attitude you hear from some people, but more the love it and fix it, love it and improve it attitude. Mm-hmm. And it's sort of surprise and the people that have sacrificed their lives in the service of that mission in the United States and also in other countries, particularly in World War II and World War I feel very strongly about honoring those people that gave their lives. And sometimes I hear some pushback about that from people that are a little younger that think that, putting flags on our social media somehow is like, maybe we don't have so much to be proud of, especially, given how conflicted our country is right now. And I just don't know what to say to that other than you can still be patriotic and know we've got a lot of work to do as a society, as a country. And in some ways we step backwards and in some ways we step forwards. That's the history of progress. It's not linear. But I don't know. I feel like there's a generational gap, Hamish. Like, what about people in your generation?
Oh, I don't know if I don't know if it's specifically like generational. I think it's like you've got different forms of patriotism, right? And then it kind of goes into nationalism. And when it turns into a little bit like, it's almost like it gets perverted, right? Where it's I love this country so much, and if you have any criticisms of it, then leave. And that gets co-opted, and because it's such like this love for the country, flying a flag and everything is kind of hand in hand with it. So it's like, to avoid getting grouped into that extreme kind of camp, you just avoid it altogether. But at its kind of core,
you mean you avoid the topic altogether?
No, kind of avoid like flying a flag. Oh. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But to me, 100%, I share the kind of exact same definition of you, where it's like to love something, and as far as like loving a country means to accept its flaws and to kind of love it for what it is, and also love a lot in this sentence, but love the journey of improving it. And working towards it and recognizing that it has issues and wanting to do better for the country out of the love of the country, right? Versus kind of resting on their laurels and being like, yeah, we won World War II. We're the greatest nation in the world. We don't need to change jack. If you don't like it, you should get out of here. And that's like, they're also flying flags. And so the more and more like hyper patriotic people get, it turns off the people that are like, yeah, I'm definitely a patriot, but I'm not going to go out there and kind of like blindly wave the flag, right?
Yeah.
I think it gets a little bit more nuanced, yeah.
And you think that's the prevailing attitude of people that are your generation?
Yeah, there's a lot of, and it's like kind of sadness more than anything, right? Where it's like a lot of love for this country and recognition that this country is great and has done a lot of things that kind of set the path for the modern developed world. And without getting like too political, it's hard to see a lot of people say that, America is great or number one when there's like a lot of metrics that are like, well, it's not anymore, and we should be doing better and we should be doing more to get it back to being number one. But we can't rest on our laurels all this time,
Yeah. Well, I never said anything about us being number one, but I hear you. A lot of people that
you're cutting out, but I'm going to guess that you're agreeing with me.
Oh, I'm cutting out? Okay.
You're back now.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what exactly I was saying there, but I will say there's a distinction between patriotism and super patriotism. And I don't think we're number one in many categories. And in fact, the majority of them we no longer are when it comes to education and healthcare. We're number one when it comes to defense spending, right? Like that's no doubt we are number one, and we're about to spend, 13% more in the current budget bill. So that's alarming that we are number one there, but we aren't number one when it comes to taking care of our citizens. And I feel like that's where we have room for improvement. But I think you can both be patriotic and be critical. And and I feel I bristle a little when people are down on the United States, and I feel like they don't have a lot of global perspective on how our country really is one of the few places that have as much upward mobility for anyone, really, but particularly for those that are not born in the majority, right? For the people that are not in this country, not born with certain levels of privilege. I'm just grateful. I don't think that if you took me to Japan, I'd have any chance at success as a teenager. If you took me and dropped me into any country in the world, being a brown-skinned human being, I ask which country would I have the best opportunity in, and I feel like the United States is, bar none, the best opportunity for the vast majority of people, irrespective of color. I think it's probably true for people that are in the majority too, but I know it's true for people in the minority, and I also feel very...
and you were dropped in upstate New York as well.
Yeah, but and that's I guess a relatively conservative place. And I've had family members work for the VA. My dad was a doctor for the VA, and I've had family members pass away in other wars around the world and give their life for the cause of service. I think a lot of people may have been, they really may not have had a choice. Ancestors may not have had a choice in fighting wars, but I'm deeply. I just feel like our civilization rests on the sacrifice of a lot of humans, and we should remember that. If just on one day of the year, take a pause and remember it, and it's okay, because in this country you can run the Bolder Boulder and you can wear the flag upside down because you have the freedom to wear the flag
at all.
Or you can, literally, our country protects your rights to protest. And many countries, you cannot say anything. Try that in China. But I am curious how many flag upside down people will see tomorrow, because I know this sentiment is pretty strong, particularly here in Boulder. There's a lot of distress over the current administration. And of course, just that's one of the signs of bad things when you fly the flag upside down. Yeah. So it would not surprise me to see a few of those tomorrow.
I mean, it's I don't want to go
tomorrow.
too crazy
Sorry,
into
on Monday.
Monday.
On Monday.
Yeah. I mean, a day after tomorrow, if we publish Friday.
Yeah,
but,
true.
Yeah, I mean, you go crazy with it. Like, I've heard it was recommended that to burn the flag is the best thing you can do with it, because then it avoids burying it or touching the ground with it. Like, it's flag code, and it's against flag code to wear, and kind of monetize the flag and make prints of it and everything like that. But, if we talk about upside down flag and stuff, it's just... the ultra patriotic kind of takes it a little bit too far. They'll violate flag code, right, in name of patriotism. So it's there's not an issue with flying the flag, but it's not flying it because you don't want to risk being grouped into this ultra patriotic nationalist group, right? And I think, from what I know and the people that I talk to, my age group, that kind of deal, everybody's well aware of the U.S.'s successes, but we're very concerned that the kind of sentiment and the ideas for why the U.S. is successful has kind of been manipulated and twisted, right? And
no doubt. No doubt.
And so we're just very worried that that's been lost, and it's just this patriotism for patriotism's sake, where it's hey guys, we deserved it back then, but at this rate, we could be doing a little bit more. And it's still a patriotic thought.
I'm not sure we don't always, not everything we've done in our country is something to be proud of.
Mm-hmm. Oh, totally.
But it's certainly something to learn from. I'm reading Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee, which is a story of the Native American genocide told from the Native American perspective. And it's a very different history than I learned in high school.
I believe
it's a little difficult to read.
Yeah.
But even so, I feel like you can balance...
We're fun podcast.
It is a fun podcast. I feel like you can balance your love for country and community with allowing space for criticism and, frankly, owning what you're doing to contribute, right? Like if you're not doing anything to contribute to our society, whether it's local groups that clean up a park, or you're getting involved in politics, God forbid, or you're volunteering for something, even though it's a for-profit event, volunteering for this community event is something that brings people together for good things. And those that only sit on the sidelines and kvetch about how bad our country is, I feel like need to get out there and see the rest of the world a little more. And once they're done with that, should try to make wherever they choose to live a better place. Like I feel like you have a duty to do that. If you're, I feel like the right to complain about it should come commensurate with a duty to do something about it.
Right. Like, don't just sit on the sidelines, guy. Come on. And it's really cool because if you like running, you run and you end up there for Memorial Day. And then you do kind of have that community and that feel. And I don't care where you sit. Learning that the jets do the flyover, I may just go just to see the fly. I love jets. I think they're so sweet. So, like, I'm just gonna go just to see the jets.
The skydivers are really cool too, and it's free. Yeah. So if you're not running, for free, you can watch the event from the sidelines, and you can go to the stadium, and you can enjoy the show in the stadium, and you can go to the Boulder Creek Festival and enjoy the music. And there are lots of freebies handed out by vendors all over the city. You may have a hard time getting a restaurant anywhere downtown. So here's a couple of pro tips to wrap it up. So
pro tips are a great idea.
Yeah. So here's a couple of things that you may want to consider. One, it is really hard to get a parking spot anywhere close to the event, and the event organizers will encourage you to park in these outlots, and then they will bus you. And that's a great way to get into the event. Another option is to find a parking space quite a distance from the event and ride your bicycle in. That's something we usually do because it gives us a little bit of a warm-up. And we don't bring our fancy bikes, we bring our townies, but we've never had them messed with. And it's been a perfect way to get around the city during the event. Trying to get around the city in a car is a nightmare. And this year is going to be worse than most because of all the construction. So do not try to get your car close to the event. And then the other thing to think about is where to meet people. And it's a good idea to have pre-organized meeting spots in the stadium or outside the stadium. There's usually some stuff going on outside the stadium with an exhibition and live music. And that area can be really lovely if it's hot out. There's shade there. And just remember to have fun. Don't take any of it seriously. It's just a big party. And
stay hydrated
and enjoy the experience with friends and family. I hear there's a new app, so that's the fourth one. There's a Boulder app where you can see where your friends are. One of my running buddies is encouraging me to download this thing, so I might give it a try. And if it works well, maybe next year I'll encourage you to try it too.
Yeah, wicked. Full disclosure, I'm snipping that out. I think that's a great little reel out of Boulder to put on our socials.
Cool. Let's do it.
The pro tips. Yeah, that's fantastic.
I love it.
Anything else? I'm thinking, not really. I want to go and just try and get some video and some just kind of content of it. Try and memorialize it. It's really cool.
Well, I think it's going to be a fantastic weekend. The weather looks pretty good. And we're probably going to host open houses on Saturday. I've already talked to our clients about not doing it Sunday or Monday. I think it makes sense to do it on Saturday. So expect to see at least one open house for our clients on Saturday. And while we're on shameless self-promotion, let me mention that we have a client who is still on the hunt for the perfect rambling ranch, under 4,000 square feet, but in town, and something that doesn't need a lot of maintenance. So on a normal sized lot, and maybe 3,500 square feet would be ideal. Would like to park a travel trailer if possible, but that's not a deal killer. And the house has to really be well laid out for their needs. It can't be too big. So closer to 3 is probably better than 4. Not too many bedrooms and baths. This is sort of a downsizing move. And due to some mobility issues, they really need everything one level. So large rambling ranch, updated, and willing to pay fair value. Like, we're not looking to steal a house, but trying to find one that really suits all of those needs. So if you have a listing, or you have a listing coming up, or you are listening to this and you have a home to sell that matches those criteria, please reach out to us. You can find me at houseeinstein.com.
These buyers, really quick, are they the ones that have the current record for longest time searching?
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Nice. In their fashion.
In their fashion. Yeah. I mean, last time took 3 years, so this time could take, I think we're on almost 3 years now, but they're not under pressure, but I think this could be their year. They have reserved funding to go buy it. Like, they're ready. So, All right, let's jump into our next segment. And in this segment, we talk about closings that have recently occurred that illustrate trends in the market, localized, very hyper-local market conditions by price point or neighborhood, or just frankly, just cool houses that we think are worth talking about. And we're not able to talk about these while they're actively listed unless you are a subscriber to our newsletter, which we are now doing quarterly, where I will write about active listings. That's just a rule for the MLS and for the Real Estate Commission. We just can't dish about active listings. But once they're closed, they are fair game for us to dish about. And boy, we like to talk about them. And this, and we've got 5 to get through, and we're going to do it pretty quickly because I've got a meeting coming up. And the first one is 2088 Alpine Drive. And let's start from a location perspective. This is a location I like to call the Alpine Balsam Panorama Peninsula. And from a geographical perspective, it looks like a continuation of Valmont Butte. Like if you look at Valmont Butte as it runs across the city from east to west, it has been shaved down and then comes back up. I'm not a geologist, but it looks like part of the same kind of movement of geology. And so it's created this like lifted patch of land. And on both the north and the south side, you get tremendous views over the city. And the ones on the south side in particular have views of the Flatirons that are just to die for. And you are blocks away from downtown. So it is a spectacular spot. In the long run, it is appreciated like you wouldn't believe. I've had clients that I've represented on the buy side in this location, and none of them have been excited to ever sell because they're just it's such a great location. This particular house is sitting on a larger than typical lot. It is on a lot that's over 10,000 square feet, so almost a quarter acre. And the home was constructed in 2002. So A+, or A at least, for the location, like really prime location. And then generous size house, 5,100 square feet, with 5 bedrooms, 5 baths, and a 3-car attached garage. So pretty generous size house, has that magic 3-car garage, larger than normal lot, and at least an A rating on the location, plus built sometime this century, which, believe it or not, has a really big impact to valuation. Like historic homes that have been updated and improved upon can also be really, really valuable. But this era of design typically suits a lot of people. They feel more open. They have tall ceilings, open floor plans. This particular house is super interesting because the photo set starts with the interior. And normally when it's sort of a red flag, a hidden language thing, when you see a listing that starts with an interior photo, it's usually because the exterior could be kind of ugly or something's wrong with it. But certainly this is what's called a post and beam interior, and I particularly like this style. It doesn't feel so empty as just complete open space. It also is less expensive. You're not putting a whole bunch of steel in the walls. I love the staircase. I think it's really, really pretty from an architectural perspective. There's a warmth to it. As I flip through the photos, it's just a super attractive house. The front photo, eventually you get to it on photo 5. I feel like they went a little crazy with the saturation. Like they made the beams look a little more yellow. And if you were trying to maximize every dollar out of this, I probably would have suggested it's worth staining those beams a different color. But flip through the photo set and you'll see that amazing killer view, and you'll see the turnkey kitchen, and everything is just dialed in, right? Absolutely dialed in, and really nice property. So what happened with the deal? Well, as we've shared with you many times, the ultra luxury segment in particular is just really slow. Frankly, anything above 3 million in Boulder is really slow, to the point where if you are a seller that is north of 3 million, we're going to have a really serious conversation about improvements and pricing and marketing campaign, because it's going to be a difficult house to sell. It might need a 2-year listing agreement because of how slow the luxury 3+ and ultra luxury, I would say 5+ market has become. And this particular house was listed at first for 7.25 in September of 2023. So first mistake, you listed it in September, which is just a horrible time to bring a home to market. Really, you should have it on by March, April, May, latest June, and you're probably still going to capture some of the selling season. But September, you're just entering the fourth quarter. But at this price point, people don't necessarily need to sell. That we found that frequently with our clients, that this is their number, they're not going to budge from it. Okay, so it was listed from September through December. Nothing happened. The listing expired. It was brought back in April, so now you're bringing it back at a better time of year, and listed at 7.25. They waited until July 10th before they cut the price, and they cut it to 6.85, and this is July of last year. And then nothing happened again. It went all the way through, and they pulled it off right before Christmas, and then the listing expired at the end of the year. Let's go back into now this year. So what happens? January 6th, it comes back on market. So it was off the market for about a week, and they listed again at 6.85, and nothing happens. April, they cut the price, and now they're getting serious, right? They've been on the market for more than a year. They cut the price to 6.4. So they take $455,000 off the price, and nothing happens for another month, because at this price point, the pacing is much slower, right? Like buyers, you may go weeks without a showing at this price point. And frankly, you don't really want the property being shown to looky-loos. You really want qualified buyers only, and you want the agent attending every showing. But anyway, they went under contract April 15th. And it just closed at 6.1, just under 6.1. So another 400,000 basically off the list price, off the last list price. So originally it started at 7.2, closed at 6.1, and that's over 1,000 square. Ooh, I got a weird echo. I'm hearing myself now, Hamish.
Oh, strange.
Okay. I'm probably going to have to drop and come back to the pod. And we're back. Although, if you're listening to this, we never left. But in real time, we did. We had a technical glitch. You may notice if you're watching this on YouTube or elsewhere that we are no longer wearing the same clothes because a day has elapsed. We had a technical problem which made it impossible to continue the podcast. But we're now going to pick it up from where we left off yesterday and where you left off from 30 seconds ago to continue the pod. So the next sale of the week is 624 Maxwell Ave. And this property was listed in... Well, let's back up. It was acquired for $1,020,000 in 2023, and the owner decided a couple of years later, not even a full 2 years, in January of this year, to go ahead and put it on the market. And it was listed on the 29th of January at 1.489, and it went under contract a little over a month later, and that deal fell apart 4 days after going under contract for undisclosed reasons. And then the property was withdrawn on the 28th and refreshed with a brand new listing at 1.35 on March 28th. And it went under contract 3 weeks later, and it closed at 1.304. So $1,304,000 sale price. And there were no additional disclosed concessions in that sale price. The location is, frankly, one of my favorite spots in all of Boulder. It is in Mapleton Hill, in the historic district, but not on Mapleton Ave itself, on Maxwell Ave, which is one street to the north. And that spot between, I would say, 9th Street and 4th Street, a little closer to the 4th Street side, is just magical. One of the first agents to join the company back when we founded the original brokerage, not House Einstein, she owned a house on Maxwell. She eventually listed and sold it. They moved to Telluride, so we lost her as an agent. But we had several parties at that house, and I just absolutely love this location. It is so charming. And because I prefer a little discretion, you don't have to say Mapleton on your address, because when you say Mapleton, people immediately assume a few things. But if you were to say Maxwell, people that are not from Boulder would have no idea where you live. And it's just a great spot inside the historic district. The house itself was built in 1909, and it's a bungalow style property, pre-war, like most of Mapleton Hill. So it is going to get the scrutiny of the historic review people as well as the landmarks board if you ever try to do something to this property on the outside, but you can always modify the inside. Small is beautiful. It's only a 2-bed, 1-bath bungalow, but pretty big for a 2-bed, 1-bath. 1,429 finished square feet, 1,579 total, and a 1-car detached garage. So this type of property, Hamish and I are always talking about who is the archetype buyer, like who is this type of property aimed at? And there are people that absolutely love historic homes, and there are people that love historic homes but don't need to live in them full time. And if you happen to need a second home in Boulder, this type of property could work really, really well, because it doesn't, it's a small is beautiful style living property. Yeah. And it just oozes historic charm. It just I don't know, oozes, exudes, radiates historic charm.
Ooh, radiates. Yeah.
I think it's just absolutely beautiful. And one of the things we like to do in the newsletter when we talk about sold listings is we like to take a look at the Carnegie Library to talk about the history of these properties. And there's usually so much to learn from a little visit to the Carnegie Library. And luckily, you don't need to do it in person. You can do it virtually. And I'm literally going to do it real-time cold. I'm not going to share screen, but I'm just going to look it up cold, because it doesn't really take that long to learn the real history of these properties. You can look at the historic building inventory record, and they often contain lots of notes about the property. And 2 immediate cards came up. So I'll pull up the historic building inventory record, and I'm going to read you a few details from it, just so you get a sense of the type of things you can find from the review of the historic record of these types of properties. So 624 Maxwell. Oh, I think I'm going to have to download it. It's this little viewer is so tricky.
Yeah, I saw an error on that too. But for the listeners, I'm going to put a link to, it's Carnegie for me, localhistory.boulder library. I'm going to put a link to that in the description as well.
Cool. Thanks, Hamish. That's super helpful. Okay, 624 Mapleton's historic record. And the actual date of construction, 1909, so that's verified. And at the date of the architectural review, which Roger Whittaker took the photos for, you'll see his photos throughout historic inventory records. I think this is like a 1990s record, but it might be 80s. Boulder Survey of Historic Places, 1993 to 1996. I didn't date this little card. I thought it was on here. Oh, there it is. No, it's sometime between 1993 and 1996. It was described as being in excellent condition. And also, and this is really key, contributing to the historic district, but not eligible for the National Register. And it was described as 1-story dwelling on stone foundations, side gabled roof with stucco and half timbering on gable ends, front gabled dormer with multi-light window, overhanging eaves with exposed rafters. I mean, classic, right? There's really, but in the historic background part, which is the part I really like, it says in 1913, J. Guyano and Catherine Archibald lived here. That's Archibald. Archibald was associated with Rynn and Archibald, lawyers. Robert E. Wattenbaugh has owned the house since the 1960s. So it doesn't tell you who originally owned the house, but in 1913, Guyano and Archibald lived there, and there's a really good chance they were the first owners. It's unfortunate that we don't know for sure whether they were the first owners, because we would like to call it the Guyano Archibald house, or just the Archibald house, since she was more recognized as a historic figure in Boulder, at least associated with a law firm that was here, that was known. So it also says it is significant because it represents a type or period or method of construction. And yes, it once again contributes to the historic district. It says, an example of the bungalow style popular in Colorado from 1900 to 1930. Characteristics include the broad overhanging roof with exposed rafters, the roof dormer, the combined use of brick and stucco on the exterior, and the battered posts on the prominent front porch. So, why am I reading all of that? Well, I'll tell you, if it is cute, it is interesting, and the historic photos are really pretty. Well, I mean, they're black and white, but they tell you what it looked like, and it hasn't really changed much since the photos were taken. If you're the reason this is important is that if you are buying a home that is pre-war and then a home that is inside a historic district on top of being pre-war, you really need to understand what you're getting into, because it is not really a home that you own. It's really a home that you're stewarding for the community. I hate to put it that way, but I think that's the better way to think about it.
It's a good way to frame it. Yeah.
I mean, look, this is Boulder. People are in your business on any given day anyway. But if you own one of these historic homes in the district, they are really in your business. And so there's an expectation of you stewarding and taking care of this home, because it really is something that is cherished by the whole community, even though you legally own it, and you will get the financial benefit as well as the living experience of being an owner.
And I say sometimes the financial liability, right?
Oh, for sure, the financial liability of being an owner. I mean, look, I'll just give you an example. A few years ago, somebody decided to tear down a shed that was in the back of their home on an alley in the historic district. And they put up a little basketball court. And all the neighborhood kids, which frankly, they're not a lot in Mapleton Hill because it's an older neighborhood. That's just reality. But the kids, the neighborhood loved the basketball court. The shed that was falling down was literally ready to be trashed. And the city council forced the demolition of the basketball court and put the shed back. Now the shed's gone. It's in a dumpster somewhere. You can't put it back, but they forced the owner to rebuild a shed that was similar to the historic one that had been removed without a permit. And that's the kind of thing that could happen to you unwittingly if you don't know what you're getting into buying a home in a historic district in Boulder. You just a historic home in Boulder. You just really need to know what you're getting into, and be prepared for the community involvement in any decisions that affect the 3 exterior walls on the front side. The back side has the potential to get expansion.
Get pushed out, right?
You might be able to push out the back side because the controls don't regulate the back side, but they do. The regulations do care about things like windows and doors. They need to look historic, even when you replace them with brand new windows, which can add a lot of cost. With a normal historic home, expect it to be 2 times what a regular or more modern home might be to maintain. And stack stone foundations or fieldstone foundations, they are constantly in a state of movement and repair, and you will see this in all sorts of homes. The ultimate fix is to lift the whole house up and re-pour a proper foundation and if you're doing that, dig out a decent sized basement and expand the footprint of the house. Anyway, that's the deal. Of course, this house is now here's the part that's really kind of I wouldn't call it a red flag, but again, one of the things you really need to know getting into it. Lot size is only 3426, so really small lot. So who's the right buyer? This is probably somebody who this is not their primary home. This is somebody who summers in Boulder or has grandkids in Boulder and wants to have a regular place to visit. It could also be purchased. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if somebody else in Mapleton Hill, which is a very affluent part of town, acquired this as a guest house, because what a perfect guest house when you have visitors to, half a block away from your primary. So very cool property. I think $1.3 million for this is actually very reasonable given its location and given its historic Provence, but also its limited function with only 2 beds, 1 bath.
Yeah, it's totally small. It's beautiful. It's
Anything
good
else
marketing.
You want to add? Anything else you want to add about it, Hamish?
Pretty reasonable. There's like a picture in the sunroom that's a little bit blurry, but I'm guessing a photographer knocked it while taking their exposure bracket. That'll happen.
Yeah. It's got a bunch of fake staging, which I'm not a fan of. One of the things that people will do to try to limit the liability impact of fake staging is I think it's fake staging. Hold on. Yeah. Maybe it's not fake. Photo 16 looks fake to me, but okay, maybe it's not. But one of the things people will try to do with fake staging or virtual staging is they will show both how it looks with the staging and without the staging. And then there'll be a bunch of language in the additional provisions or the broker remarks saying photographs show, not real staging. But I think this actually might be real. It's gotten so good now that I have to really spend time looking at it to make sure,
I'm still embarrassed from the last time that I thought that fake Twilight photo was a real one a couple of pods back. So I stay quiet about those things now.
It's getting good, right? Like we were thinking about adding some fake sunsets if necessary, if we can't get a good real sunset, because it does capture people's attention. All right, let's move on. Yeah. Ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. 345 South 42nd Street. And this is a home in Martin Acres toward the east side of the neighborhood. That's the east side of Martin Park. And Martin Acres was mostly developed in the mid-1950s. There are so many of the same style ranch house on a 7,000-ish square foot lot. There's actually 3 or 4 different models, the most attractive of which was called the Martinique, based on its floor plan. That's what buyers typically prefer. And this house is in the middle of the block between Martin Drive and Table Mesa Drive. So it won't be as impacted by traffic as homes that are closer to Table Mesa Drive. But all of Martin Acres, you will hear in the background steady hum of traffic from US 36 and Broadway. It's just part of life in Martin Acres. Eventually, you'll stop hearing it if you live there because it's just constant in the background. The house itself is interesting. So
yes,
yes, for sure. Let me do the price history first. Originally listed in toward the end of March at $900, and after 24 days on market, they cut it to $875, and then within a week of that price cut, they went under contract, and then it ended up selling for more than the price cut. So likely there was more. So in other words, the list price was $875. It sold for $890. And likely with that price cut, there were 2 buyers that swirled in on it at the same time. Otherwise, why would the price have gone above list, right? It's unlikely to have gone above list unless there was more than one buyer interested in the house. And there were no disclosed concessions for inspection or financing. So when you look at the photos, these ranches are great properties because they work for so many types of home buyers. They offer one level of bedrooms on the main. Usually there are 3 on the upper level, and then the basement offers a lot of expansion potential. And people have popped the top, so to speak, and built a second story on so many of these homes. In fact, if you dig through Google or whatever search engine you're using, you'll probably stumble into my pop top map that I created in like 2007. I haven't updated it in many years, but I went through the whole neighborhood on a bicycle taking photos of every second story addition. You have to do it during the winter or early spring after the leaves have fallen so you get good views of the houses. And it was surprising how many there were, and I put them on a map just so I could track them better. But yeah, it's a very popular thing because it's a box on a box, so it's relatively easy to add that second story. And then, I don't know, Hamish, what do you think of the photos? Tell me what you think of the house.
I'm curious. It looks like either the windows have been like scored to plan for an expansion or a replacement from the exterior, like you can see, or have the windows shrunken and they put in more brick, but you can see almost like a border of either like chalk on the outside of the windows or something. That lead photo actually almost shows it the most.
Yeah, that's from, I'll tell you what that's from. That's from shutters. So there are decorative shutters on all of these houses, completely fake shutters. And over the years, people have just removed them and they've left marking from when they were repainted or something. So they were probably white shutters that were removed, and that's all that is. Those windows, actually, when I look at the photos, I see original windows. And they are steel buck. Each of them weighs like 500 pounds. They are so heavy. It's crazy. They were never designed to be removed and replaced, so cutting them out is a skill.
Labor intensive.
I've done one, and I was surprised how much work it was to remove the window.
Oh, yeah. I believe it. Yeah, set in the brick too, right? Yeah, otherwise, I mean, these ranches are awesome. I'm living in one. These Martin Acres homes, I think they're really solid and practical. Maybe it's you love Martin Acres, but maybe it's just not the neighborhood for me, but it feels very penned at this rate, being that there's 36 and Broadway that go through it. But I love it. Like, I know it's a good spot. There's nothing
they don't go through it. They are on the borders of it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
and then Table Mesa at the bottom right. But yeah, I don't know. I've seen some very cool parts of Martin Acres, and then I've seen some more parts that feel a little bit more like almost like a desert. Weirdly enough, yeah, no hard feelings, but that's kind of my general thoughts on this one.
Okay, I mean, I'll add a couple things. Yes, I do like this neighborhood a lot. I have owned and lived in this neighborhood. I've owned houses and own houses in this neighborhood. And the community feel is really lovely. It does have a few college students, but there's not a lot. In fact, I think there are fewer and fewer as the economics have not supported college students. And this house looks pretty good. It looks like, based on the photos, the sewer line's been replaced. The basement kitchenette may not be with a permit, judging by the size of the sink, probably not.
Yeah, I was wondering if it was there for so long that they put it in before it was even a thing.
Probably not. I think that you would, if the city people were looking at this, they might ask you to remove that kitchen sink. But there's some salt stains on the walls where likely the basement got wet at some point. And I'm pretty sure there's additional storage that was built under the garage, which is relatively rare. So this might actually be a Martinique model. It doesn't quite look like it. So this is I think this is a solid house. Replace the windows, update a few things, and I mean, take the wall down in the kitchen, remodel the kitchen for sure, right? That would open it up. That wall is definitely structural. That wall is 100% structural. And this house would look radically different with new windows, a new kitchen. And you have to ask yourself, is $900 the right price for not great finishes, but a decent location and maybe livable for a family? I think the answer is right, that this is a decent price for this house. The power lines in one of the photos look like they may go over the house, but I'm pretty sure that's not true. I think it's just power lines to the house. Has a radon system.
Through the backyards, right?
No, the photo made it look like it was going over the house. It's not.
Okay.
I think this was actually a pretty solid buy. The take-home lesson, though, if you're listening to this, is that if you had offered before it dropped, right? So they dropped the price from $900 to $875. They took 3 weeks to do that. If you had just offered $850, 2 weeks in, you probably would have gotten it for $875, right?
Yeah.
And instead, you waited till the price dropped, and then you went after it, and then somebody else wanted it at the same time, and you ended up at $890, and you probably gave up some inspection conditions too to get it. So the take-home lesson is you shouldn't wait 3.5 weeks. Like, if you're trying to play the I don't want to jump on this and pay full price game, it's a great house, but I don't absolutely have to have it, let's wait 2 weeks. And then offer your low offer to test the seller and negotiate with the seller. But if you wait 3 weeks or longer, there's a very good chance a price cut's coming, and that may end up with unexpected competition. So
also give it a shot too, right? Like, I've seen a few buyers where they're like, "Oh, we'll wait, but we're not going to try, an offer. We want to see the price come down first." And it's like, give it a shot, after a little bit of time.
This market's seeing a lot of inventory, and there's a bunch of sellers that are hesitant to drop prices, but know they're overpriced. And
willing to take a lower.
And now is the time, I think, to offer. Normally I say wait for the late third quarter. I don't think so. This year we've seen a big slowdown. It's all over the national news. We have lots of buyers sitting on the sidelines too. And we have a bunch of listings too that are great houses that are priced right. And the sellers of all of listings, not just ours, are certainly wondering what's happening in the market. So they're more negotiable now than they will be after they cut their price. I think you may want to take advantage of the high inventory and not wait till the end of the third quarter. But of course, there is these news articles saying prices could fall 9%. So, it take your gamble. My personal perspective is getting the right house matters way more than saving a few percentage points. It's so hard to get a high quality house in Boulder at a reasonable price that when you see one that actually checks all the boxes, sitting on your hands and not moving on it, I think is a mistake. But it's our clients that make the call.
Yeah.
Okay, let's keep moving. 1505 Pearl Street, Unit 209 is our fourth listing that we're discussing today that closed on May 16th. So this location is interesting. Back when I first moved to Boulder, there used to be a sort of a weird little bazaar here. Like it was a building and they allowed local artists to have little spaces in it. So it was kind of rummage sale-y feeling. Mm-hmm. In some ways ahead of its time for, reuse, recycle clothing and other stuff. Like we see that being way trendier now. It was very cool. And then the owner sold the building and they built a giant condo on it and it was all over.
If that does sound interesting to you, listener, the Lafayette Flea Market is a similar spot. And super cool to check out. Yeah, a bunch of individual stores under one roof.
Oh, that's cool. I've never been there. Yeah, Longmont also has something similar to that. I can't remember the name of it, but I've been there a couple times when we're having.
I like them.
Yeah, they're neat. I mean, it's super neat. Although it also, indulges your desire to collect and buy things you don't really need. Okay,
could have been luxury housing.
Right. It could have been this $800,000 2-bed, 2-bath, but instead you went to the flea market. 15th and Pearl. So you've got Illegal Pete's right there. You've got all of Pearl Street Mall. You've got Mountain Sun. You've got all sorts of shops and restaurants. You are in the heart of it. And this building is pretty new, built in 2007. 2-bed, 2-bath, 1,200 square feet. So about the size, maybe even a little bigger than a standard Martin Acres ranch. And one underground parking space. But HOA fees, I mean, it's downtown. It's $600 a month, $604 a month. But this is the kind of place, the archetype buyer for this, I think, is this could be a granny flat for a family that has grandkids here. It could also be young professionals. It could be an executive residence. It could also, it could be others too, but that's what immediately comes to mind because it's lock and leave, right? You have your pad in Boulder, you've got a secure space underground, and you are right in the heart of everything fun and cool. So what a great spot to own property for the long run. And this particular property had been on the market a long time. So originally listed, oh boy, here we go. Well, actually, no, this is even more interesting than originally listed. So the person who sold it bought it really just after the peak of the frenzy of COVID activity. They paid $915 for it in December of 2022, and they listed it with wishful thinking this past August, so 2024, at $950. And again, this is a bad time of year to list. Listing at the end of August. Look, people do buy real estate year round, but if you were approaching me and you wanted me to represent you selling your home in August, I would tell you that, well, we're going to need a year-long listing agreement because the fourth quarter is slow. And there may be weeks or even, could go 2 months without a showing. And people are less motivated to make a move. Well, they listed it at the end of August. On the 12th, they cut it to $925. On the 26th of September, they cut it to just under $900. So within a month, or just over a month, they've knocked off $51,000. And now, so they had come to reality that the market was not going to give them what they paid for it, which is painful for people psychologically. Nothing happened, and right before Thanksgiving, they withdrew it, and the listing expired on January 8th. They brought it back on the 9th at $850. So another $50,000 price cut. Nothing happened. February rolled through and they cut it again, this time to $800. And that was probably their floor. And they sat at $800 until May 9th when it went under contract. And it sold for $800. So that, that's a tough negotiation because people always feel like they need a discount. They want a discount. And in this particular case, they didn't get a discount. Listing agent double-ended it. He represented both sides or represented neither side. We don't know actually what the representation's setup was. But the price was the price, $800, and it closed on the 16th. So, not just a few days ago. Overall, I mean, I haven't really talked about the finishes. Let me just jump in there, Hamish, and then I want your take on this. I think it's nicely finished. I don't think there's any real significant updates from original construction. This was a time period when there was a style that was popular of putting, ducting, exposed ducting in the ceiling, and they called it industrial style lofts. There's a bunch in the Peloton that have the same thing going on. This looks like all original finishes to me. But I think it's a decent pad, downtown pad, right? Like a bachelor pad kind of spot.
Totally.
Young executive.
I'm surprised it's under. I just in my head had always thought that like if you're this close to Pearl Street, it's $1 million plus. And so seeing something 200K short of that is, I really like this one. I don't like the exposed ducting. I think it's reminiscent of Chipotle at this point. Like it's gone out of fad and Chipotle's the one still doing all that stuff. So, but yeah.
I would agree with you completely. But I want the viewers and listeners to remember this one because you will hear a lot of agents tell you that Boulder real estate doesn't go down. And it's Boulder real estate. You won't lose money. These people lost $115,000 plus commissions. And I don't know what the listing agent charged. Usually when you double end, you collect both sides, but maybe a discount to both sides. So my guess is 4%. It would be about right. It could be 3%. That's usually what seasoned agents will do is either 3 or 4. And the smarter ones are usually 4. Some of them will take 3 to make the deal happen. And maybe that's what happened here is the listing agent took a haircut to make the deal happen because psychologically in the negotiation, the buyer's going to want to get it below list. So maybe that's how it worked out. Like, although there's no disclosed
listing price reduction. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's no disclosed concessions. So without actually seeing the settlement statement where you don't really know what happened, but 800 is what it sold for. Seller definitely lost 100 grand at least, if not a lot more. Like I would guess 150. For the privilege of owning this for 2 years. So remember very carefully, real estate does go down in Boulder. It's really important to buy it right, and hold it for long periods of time. Honestly, like buying it at the peak and selling it 2 years later is painful. So don't do that. Don't make that mistake.
Yeah, we've seen a few people that have bought during the peak and feeling for them at this point.
Yeah, I mean. But I will say, most of our clients, I don't think overpaid. And our MO was to advise them not to go crazy. And if they wanted to go over list, they would make the call on how much to go over list. Like, we're not going to push them to go.
And be informed that they are going over.
And offer what you don't regret. And I'm sure that the owner of this regretted that 150 grand because I can't imagine they got, for 150 grand, they could have stayed at the St. Julian every night. They could have had Airbnbs all over town. I mean, it doesn't matter, right? They needed to get out. It was owned by a trust, so who knows what the backstory is on why they needed to sell it. Maybe they had medical expenses and they had to get out. Real estate is not liquid, and there are transaction costs, and there are cycles, just like every market.
Yeah.
Okay.
So how does this one compare with the next? I know you're about to loop it in, but I'm curious how it ties in, because I see they're relatively close together. They're both condos.
Okay, great question. Have you seen units at the Peloton?
I haven't.
You've never been inside?
No.
Oh.
We're about to eat there today.
Oh, we are. We've got a team dinner at Basta tonight, and I feel like we should tie it with a showing so you can see what it's like there.
I'll be dressed well. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I think it's worth scheduling a preview so that you can get a sense of what this is and understand it better. So the Peloton was built at the peak of the last cycle, 2005, 2006. And it was built with a philosophy of noise isolation from each individual unit. So it's really kind of overbuilt, very concrete with sound deadening in between units and super quiet. I mean, the people I have helped buy and sell have told me they don't hear their neighbors. And the key selling point is that it's much newer, tall ceilings, modern design, and the community center is like a private club. It has a rooftop pool, rooftop hot tubs. barbecue spaces, lounge spaces, and then in the mid-level there's a theater and more hangout spaces.
Very nice amenities.
And then on the ground floor, there is like a reasonable gym, right? Like a pretty decent gym. And the people you are working out with are people that are living in the complex. So I feel like you get your money's worth with this association at $500 a month at $483. So let's talk about what sold. This particular condo, I'm describing their HOA dues, 3701 Arapahoe Avenue, Unit 309. And third floor is reasonable, fourth floor is better, and 949 square feet, only a 1-bed, 1-bath. It could also actually be I think it's actually a studio, not a 1-bed, 1-bath. We listed one like this, and I got so much flack.
You're totally right.
Listing it as a 1-bedroom when it's really a studio. And I unfortunately, like, listing something as a 0-bedroom would be really weird. So we also chose to list it as a 1-bedroom. And this one had the industrial ceilings. And depending on location, there's a couple of nuances. Like, you don't really want to be directly over the doors to the garage. And this does face the north, which could give you some exposure to noise from the RTD maintenance facility. In fact, one of the photos, you see like a bunch of industrial looking. Yeah,
I was going to say some of the most gorgeous balcony.
Yeah, that's the RTD maintenance building. So, it not amazing, that particular northern exposure. I think I like the southern side more, but you have traffic noise on the southern side. You hear Arapahoe.
Yeah,
the photos do a good job of showing what you actually get in the amenities. And in one of my past listings, the owner gave me permission to use the hot tub. So we would actually, a couple times during the listing period, my wife and I would grab our towels and go hang out at the hot tub, which was really nice.
With the view of the mountains, right?
It's the best hot tub in Boulder. That's what I used to tell people, and I think it's true. I think it has some of the best, at least semi-public, right? Like it is private in an association. I'm sure there's some nicer ones like on Sunset and stuff like that where you have a hot tubs that.
I'll just put it out there. Prove us wrong. Invite us out. Yeah.
Send us photos, or better yet, invite us to your even better than the Peloton hot tub, and we will gladly bring our towels and see you there. So let's talk about this.
Index. Yeah.
I used to have a spreadsheet with every single unit at the Peloton and what the original market price was when they started selling it, because they were trying to get you to buy, and they were like, buy before the prices go up. Well, the prices didn't go up. They fell through the floor. And a bunch of people bought early and lost it. And they would market it with like a free scooter if you bought in the pre-build phases. Anyway, this particular, I'm not pulling out that spreadsheet right now, but this particular property was acquired. Here's another loser, okay? Was acquired in March of 2015 for $780, and they listed it in February at $725. They knew they were taking a loss this February, and it went under contract. No price changes. It went under contract April 15th, tax day. Likely it went under contract the day before, but close enough. And then it closed at $675. So
$50K
they
off.
took another $50,000 off of the list price. They paid $675 for this, which is a phenomenal, in my mind. I
was going to say, yeah. Okay, cool. You're saying it too. Yeah.
That's a really good deal. And the seller, lost $105,000 nominal off the top plus commissions, and likely paid both sides commissions. That's how it usually rolls. So another $150,000 kind of loss for the seller for buying this when they probably shouldn't have. And so, what's interesting is that there's all this like prices are gonna fall news out there, and I'm sorry, prices have already fallen, and some sellers are capitulating. And this is another one that I think is a sign of capitulation. They just said, I got to get rid of it. I'll take $675 is better than continuing to carry it. And by the way, listing agent, competent agent, knows what she's doing. It's not a marketing issue. And same for the last one, competent agents involved. And frankly, gave their clients the right advice that I'm sorry you bought it in 2022 or even 2023. This is why I tell people, hold it for 5 years.
Breaks.
Plan to hold it for 5 years. You can lose a lot of money in Boulder real estate. And this is another example.
I wonder too, people are waiting for prices to fall, and for Boulder real estate, you might not be seeing the list prices fall. It might be what you can negotiate in your offer. You might not, sellers aren't going to want to just immediately put out there that they're willing to lose, 109K on their property. And it also might signal to the buyer, like, why are you listing it for lower than you bought it? There's got to be something wrong with the property. So I think this is just more of an example, too, of put in those low offers. Don't wait for the list price to go down or don't wait for housing prices to fall. The pressure's already there on the sellers. Get out there,
I 100% agree.
Yeah.
Can't agree more. And there's some people that are afraid, some agents that are afraid to offer low, and they say things like, oh, no, you'll offend the seller. And I tell our buyers, first of all, whether or not you offend the seller, if I was representing the seller, I would pretend you offended the seller because that's the right negotiation move. You always flinch. Yeah. Always flinch. Oh man, that number is so low. It's going to be really hard to even
50K over.
Even get the seller to look at this offer at $100,000 below list. I understand that, but that's our number. We feel like that's where the market is, and that's what we're willing to pay. See what you can do. That's my response to the listing agent if they tell me how offended they are. I'm like, I'm sorry they're offended. It's still $600,000. If they don't want to sell it for that, that's fine. I mean, they can sit with their being offended and not close the deal. Like, your job is to negotiate, right? And if there are comps that support the low offer price, great. If there are not comps that support the low offer price, you can hang that low offer on other things, including this is all they can afford right now, or this is what they really feel it's worth in the current market, given how prices are dropping and interest rates are rising and there's so much economic uncertainty. And there's also, by the way, 50% more than 50% more inventory on the market right now. We'll go look, so that's another one. And if you're still on the market in a month, maybe we'll circle back. You're also welcome to counter at what you're willing to do. And, this is what you're paying your agent for, is to negotiate aggressively. If that's what you want to do. And for condo at the Peloton, there will be another one if you miss it.
It's a complex, and you might get a south or a west-facing one. I mean, I'm sure there's a notable premium on those, but
there are. And in fact, I'll even share a little secret about the Peloton. In the original marketing and sale of that development, there was a double-size unit on the top floor, and I remember it because it's D420. 420, right? Like, how are you not going to remember?
Get your mind out of the gutter, Oz. No.
There's nothing. You don't have to be in the gutter with 420. Like, I don't know where you're doing these things, Hamish, but in my day, it was just called college. Anyway, this is like twice the size of a normal unit, and it's a 3-bedroom. It is so expansive and luxurious, but it was never marketed publicly. Somehow, that person who acquired it got it. I think they may have combined 2 units in the original floor plan. Like, there was I really want to know who that person is that owns it, how they ended up, the original owner got it the way it is, because there's nothing else like it in the entire complex.
Unicorn. Yeah.
It is truly the penthouse at the Peloton.
Oh, that's cool. And you said west facing too?
Oh, of course. Killer views.
Oh, outstanding.
Yeah.
That's
insane.
insane.
It is spectacular. Yeah. 420. Okay. That's it. That's it for our fresh listings. Hamish, what are we going to talk about now?
The really exciting news in Longmont. Probably not the best tenor to bring it in on, but Longmont City Council is limiting where sex offenders can live, and then there is a picture of a park sign, and this park is named Rough and Ready Park. Osman, you're having a drink.
I'm having a drink of Spindrift sparkling water for the record.
4 calories.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
3. No, the lemon flavor is 3.
Oh.
That's right.
That was 25% too much. Anyhow, do you want to take it further?
All right, so I will take it further. And in my mind, this is an area for due diligence, right? We have an entire series on due diligence. There's some YouTube videos, the Red Flag series. We have a due diligence checklist we offer our buyers, which includes looking at registries, talking to neighbors, inquiring with the police department, some of whom are more forthcoming than others, about sex offenders that live in the neighborhood. And what I've learned is that not all people on the registry committed serious sexual offenses. They may have run they may have streaked a football game as a college student and now have been forced into being on the registry for the rest of their life. So it's not all predatory sexual offenders that are on the registry, and then I don't feel like I should be defending this, but there is nuance and depth that are worth exploring. But if I had a family and children, I wouldn't care, right? Like, you're on the registry for a reason, and I don't need to know anything else, right? I want to, if you're going to live right next door to me,
that's enough for me.
That's enough for me, because I'm going to take care of my kids, right? So that's why it's on the due diligence checklist. We want our buyers to explore that if they care. And some of them, especially ones with little kids, very much do care. And unfortunately, it's not straightforward to figure it out. The best thing to do is talk to neighbors and talk to the police department, some of which are more forthcoming than others, and then check the registry. But this new law that City Council passed limits where they can live. And it's interesting what they chose. They said it's illegal for a registered sex offender to live within 500 feet of a school, childcare center, private park, or public park. And this applies to both permanent and temporary residences. It's also illegal for people to rent any property to a registered sex offender with the knowledge that it violates the boundaries. So that's
a little caveat there, yeah.
Well, so if you're a landlord and you knew that this person is a registered sex offender, you are committing a crime by renting a room to this person. So yeah, I guess I think this is a good thing. I don't see any problem with it, other than I really wish the Daily Camera didn't choose Rough and Ready Park as their photo, with a kid walking into like what looks like the bathroom in the background. Like, that's just gross. And
I would have held that photo up my sleeve for a much better topic, because that is excellent.
If I was the editor at the Daily Camera, I'm like, go back out and find a different park, and do not
take
a photo.
Let's save that. But
right, that's a cool photo, but no, find a different park. And I'm sure the history of Rough and Ready has nothing to do. It just sounds icky. But
it's
the reason
very
this
gross
is
in this context,
totally gross. And in this particular context, what I really care about is encouraging buyers to do their due diligence and don't believe what the listing agent tells you. And most buy-side agents don't even encourage due diligence. We go down the rabbit hole with you and encourage. You still have to be responsible as the buyer, but we will do everything we can to help you do your due diligence, because we care about helping people make smart real estate decisions. And the neighbors usually know, especially the neighbors with kids, if there's a problem happening in the neighborhood.
And just one thing, completely agree, like on the streaking thing, or, depending on the case, like public urination. The final paragraph in this article does seem like it specifies like the particularly egregious, not light ones.
You mean like there are different degrees of sexual offense?
This one looks like it's not just the streaking style.
Right. It's sexually violent predator, or a person required to register. So it's not just... but they've been convicted of a felony for an offense requiring registration with a victim less than 18 years old. I don't even want to read this out loud. Has multiple convictions for offenses requiring registration, or whose offense requiring registration involves multiple victims. So there may be some nuance to who's actually forced to not live within 500 feet. My understanding is that these types of laws are widely ignored and difficult to enforce. Yeah, because the registered sex offender does what? Doesn't update the registry when they move.
Yeah, fair.
Right? They know that they're going to...
It's a voluntary? Okay.
Well, it's not voluntary. They're required to. But there's not like an intelligentsia...
Super strict enforcement. Yeah,
that's tracking these people at any moment, right? Like, so when it's sort of like if you know you're a convicted felon and you put a job application at McDonald's, do you check I'm a convicted felon? Not if you want the job.
Yep. No, good
right?
point.
Like, what's the penalty for lying on a job application? What's the penalty for not updating the registration? So this is what I've been told by law enforcement officers, the really violent predators, the real scary ones, they evade the registry.
Great.
Yeah, well, talk to your neighbors. That's why it's so important to talk to the neighbors, talk to the police department. Do your own
work with a brokerage that has a due diligence checklist that might be really handy for you.
Right.
HouseEinstein.com. we're here.
I don't really like that little, pitch coming at the end of that spiel, Hamish. It just feels like I need to take a shower after just having this conversation. All right, let's talk about the other piece of news, shall we?
Yeah. Sundance, it looks like Boulder's offering, and I'm going to put in the words, Boulder's offering $34 million in incentives to bring the Sundance Film Festival with hopes of a big return.
Right. An article by Brooke Stevenson in the Bolder Reporting Lab, which of course sounds like we wrote a check for $34 million, but that's not really what is happening here. Our community has $34 million in incentives over 10 years, which this is the part that I gotta say, I do appreciate the media, but the spin on this article, trying to make council look bad, trying to make the chamber and the University of Colorado look bad. By the headline,
make it sound like it's like wasteful. Yeah.
By the headline, it sounds like we wrote a big check, and in reality, the community is offering incentives in the form of waived permitting fees, waived logistical, that will provide some logistical support, public safety and parking, and in-kind contributions, and then some civic organizations like Visit Boulder and the Boulder Chamber are offering some cash contributions, and the total number, right, comes in at $34 million. And I think that's actually including the state. Right? No. With the state, it's 70. Sorry.
Okay.
The local offer with the state, the total number is more than 70 million, and that again is a 10-year time period. But let's talk about the numbers that Sundance generated for Park City last year
alone. Yeah.
132 million in economic activity, including 14 million in taxes, 106 million in spending on hotels, dining, and shopping, according to their most recent economic impact report. I mean, even if you fudge that up and say it was really 100 million in economic activity, not 132, that's still a 1-year payback on, a
10-year investment.
Yeah, on a 10. Yeah. If you're going to get that back in 1 year, give me a break. And of course, it doesn't all flow back, but it does go to businesses. It does go to employees.
It enriches the area, right?
Our servers will be unhappy about how busy Boulder is. It'll be hard to get a hotel room. It'll be hard to get a reservation, but the economic activity will benefit our community, and it will benefit our arts scene, right?
I was just about to say, yeah. Like we're gonna have and this is on top of we were just up in North Boulder filming BOMOCA, and there's the North Boulder Arts Center, and Boulder's. I'm not putting it all on the arts, but seriously investing in the arts, and it's just really cool to see, especially in kind of grayscale world out there. Yeah.
Well, there's a 2,500 seat performing arts and events center that's currently in the plans by local developer Conscious Bay. That's a huge theater, 2,500 seats, and it won't just be there for Sundance. There'll be other concerts and events that theater will support and create for our community. So all of this sounds good. The only gripe I have is the spin on
reporting
this.
of it. Yeah.
Yeah, just the way that it's intended to outrage instead of look, I'm certainly critical of our politicians in our community, and I want to give them applause for locking down Sundance. Right. I don't like all the tall buildings they're building, but man, I love Sundance. That's great. It's art, it's community, it's economic vibrancy. It puts us on the map. It's great for our community. It'll suck for those 10.
Yeah. Go for it and I'll go.
For those 10 days or week or whatever, it's going to be a pain, but the payoff is well worth the price. So that's what I was going to say.
It's like a economic feather in the cap. We've got the schools, we've got the federal, workforce buildings. Now we've got the Sundance Festival, we've got the Bolder Boulder, which we covered. It's just the more kind of rounded Boulder becomes, I think the more kind of robust it's going to be as a city, from my young take.
Yeah, I hear you and I agree with that. I also feel like, not to sound too mystical, but there's some sort of connection Boulder has. For a city of only 110,000 people, we have such an oversized influence on all sorts of things. And people know Boulder globally. And it's almost like there's energy currents, running around certain major cities where people are up to stuff and doing things that are super interesting, whether it's tech or it's art or in Boulder for many years, it's athletics and, of course, and outdoor, pursuits. And then the organic, conscious food scene in Boulder is huge. There's so many companies that are in that crunchy, earthy food space that started in Boulder.
They didn't start with Celestial Seasonings, right?
Yeah, Celestial Seasonings. This is just another example. Okay, well, that is our only 2 news items. And then we're going to wrap up the podcast with a couple of carve-outs. Well, with a couple of carve-outs, we're going to wrap up the pod. This is the segment of the podcast when we talk about things that are probably not real estate related, but sometimes might be. And it just happens to be kind of top of mind and fun topics to talk about. Yeah. So, Hamish, lead us off.
Yeah, so usually for mine, I'm talking about kind of what's going on in the week or any projects or anything like that. And a lot of these, they're going to get real interesting in a couple weeks, but kind of as things sit, I know I discussed like a Resource Central's Garden in a Box a couple months ago. That arrived and I was able to get it planted in the front yard. It covers 60 square feet, which sounds like a lot, but you look at it and it's a very small section of the front yard. I think 4 of those plants got decimated by rabbits, so I've put up rabbit protection so they can kind of bounce back, and they're getting there. Roommate's mom brought, I think, like 10 almost like fully matured starter veggie plants. So like I've got like 3 tomatoes, 3 peppers, basil, parsley, chamomile, like a ton of plants. I got those going the other night in the backyard. So we're green thumbing over here. And then I think I talked about the mini split as well. The plan is to get that installed this weekend. So if you're listening to this and it's the weekend, you can just imagine me playing with some live voltage in my electrical panel, and hopefully I'll be here for next week's podcast. But that's coming along. So yeah, just kind of a lot of projects in the works. I've got kind of a fun last day of the month activity planned and blocked off, and I'm going to fill that in next week's pod. That should be really, really cool. So, I don't know. Oh, Mr. Balls, he's recovered. Yesterday was his first day back being completely himself, and it's just great. He was super sleepy, wasn't eating. I had to take food and put it in front of him and then tap on it pretty aggressively to make him eat. But now he's staring at me with lazy eyes while he cleans himself right now. So, nature is healing.
I'm glad he's back in action and survive the ordeal of his dental visit.
Yeah, I know. I'll show and tell for the YouTube fam out there. This is his fang. It's like an inch long.
That's kind of gross, dude.
His chips.
You kept the tooth. That's a little strange.
Yeah, I did. I had to keep it
under a pillow. What are you going to do with it? You are not going to make a necklace out of that.
I'd never wear it, but it would be a necklace. I joke that it's his $533 tooth, right?
Yeah.
Dentist cats are not cheap. Yeah, I wish there was kind of like a more poignant thing, but things were really kind of chugging along in the narrative of Ham. Super enjoying the new camera. Osman and I have been doing a lot more shoots, and I'm just going to plug our social medias. Check out House Einstein on Instagram and Osman Parvez on Instagram, and really anywhere else you social media, same usernames. But we're putting together a lot of fun short form content and pretty pictures and just lots of ooh ahs and good story too. So yeah, that's my carve out. I'll have some more meat next week.
I feel like that's like the update of cats and cameras and gardens.
Yeah. Okay. What's going on?
Right.
Yeah.
All right. That's cool. My carve out is that we are going to do the Boulder Cruiser Ride this evening, also known as the Happy Thursday Cruiser Ride.
You're doing it this evening?
I am, yeah. After the
after
dinner.
Okay.
Yeah, because the dinner is early. After Basta, I'm gonna go meet Leah, and she'll be at the start, and we'll meet there, and we'll ride together for a couple of hours. The Cruiser Ride is an institution in our lovely community, and I first rode it in 2000. So 25 years ago, I first rode the Boulder Cruiser Ride, back when it was mostly cruiser bikes. And today it's all sorts of vehicles, especially with electric power. There's like an aircraft carrier. There's a bunk bed that's also a bicycle. Those are the creation of the same individual. And, of course, the night lighting has just exploded, and the sound systems have gotten better. But it's just a big party on bicycles, and it's super friendly and fun. Kids are invited. There's kids running around. There's costumes. There's themes. I wouldn't keep kids out too late, because as it starts getting dark, it turns into more of like a dance party, and that may not be the right environment for kids. But I certainly have loved riding the cruiser ride, met so many people, hundreds of people, made amazing friends over many years by riding the cruiser ride. I used to tow my golden retriever back when he was alive, when he was with me on a trailer. He was more popular than I was for obvious reasons. Golden retriever on a bicycle. You can't beat it. He was my Thursday bike ride buddy for pretty much a decade, and maybe even longer than that. And it's so much fun. So I'm sure you can find the links. You don't need me to provide them. But we're going to ride our first ride tonight of the season. And Memorial Day weekend is the kickoff to summer. And it feels like our first ride of the season coinciding with this coming weekend is kind of exciting. We're definitely pumped to go do it. The theme tonight will be monochrome. And I don't quite know what I'm going to wear. Maybe he's wear the same. That was my first inclination. And Leah looked at me and she's like, "You can wear any color, you know." And I'm like, that felt a little, it felt a little judgy. Like, I know I've got all black, but okay. All right. Well, maybe I can wear like high vis yellow or something just for fun. I will not be wearing that to dinner tonight, but I will have it in the car with me, and the bikes.
If you do
on the
all
car.
Black, make sure you got some sort of reflector on you. You know, we don't want you getting
well,
hit.
so if you're going to ride, you want to have lights on your bike for sure. It's a requirement of the cruiser ride. And there's all sorts of other rules, and it's basically self-organized, right? There's no actual nonprofit that's running this thing. There's just a handful of people that have led it year after year, a community of people that pick the themes. And it just sort of works. And of course, at any community, there's some conflict, but the vast majority of people don't know anything about the backstory of some of the conflict that happens, right? Between
they're just there to ride a bike.
So just go to have fun and don't worry about enjoy that somebody else has organized this. But back in the day, Hamish, when I first was riding, we would literally go through buildings on CU campus. Right?
Oh, cool.
It was crazy. And how it was organized was the first person in the front of the line would lead us.
And go open the door and
just lead us anywhere. Like, there was no planned route. We would go all over the place, and completely inappropriately, but also on cruiser bikes, not on, e-bikes and without massive sound systems. Our sound was ringing our bell, right? That's what we were doing. And we would wish everyone happy Thursday, which still happens today. Everyone is out there having a good time. And it's like being in a parade. Like, people just wave at you as you go by. It is just something else. And of course, you're welcome to join. I didn't mean to exclude you from it, Hamish.
No, you're fine. I need to more. I did like once last year, and that was a poor turnout. So not tonight, but I will start be doing the cruisers. It's
a fun thing to bring a date to. It's just a fun evening. Absolutely. Okay, I think that is the end of House Einstein Podcast 79. And I would like to deeply express gratitude if you have listened or watched through this whole podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you have feedback, you can send it to us privately at houseeinstein.com. You can also visit our socials, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, X, and Blue Sky. You can find our content there. And any last words, Hamish?
You guys rock. It's fantastic seeing all the feedback, seeing the comments, and can't wait to see you next time.
Yeah, we'll catch you next time. Have a good one.